If you are able to avoid these 7 study habits of highly ineffective students, you will be doing better than at least 95% of students, and I'll show you exactly why. Hi, my name is Hugo. I'm a doctor and an ex-pharmacist working in New Zealand. Now in this video, I'm about to gather the top common bad study habits and how to avoid them. This is from my personal experience as a top 10% achiever in both my undergraduate pharmacy degree and my postgraduate medicine degree. On top of that, I'm also a study performance coach and have researched much deeper into the evidence-based methods of studying. And I've applied this to help over 100,000 students in just the last year. Now I know your time is very precious, so let's get right into it. Number 1 is cramming. This is probably one of the biggest debate ever. Should I study regularly or should I find very effective techniques to cram? Over my 10 years of study in pharmacy school and med school, I've seen both ends of the spectrum. And the conclusion and the trial and error with thousands and thousands of students that I've personally coached is that cramming is almost always worse off. Now when you're in junior or even senior high school, the amount of content might not be a lot, and a lot of students get away with cramming. This is where you see the same group of students struggling in university where the marks really matters. They tend to be the ones that are super stressed out and often just barely passing their subjects. Why is that? To truly understand why cramming is ineffective, you've got to understand everyone falls into a study efficiency curve, or SEC. Ideal study session goes like this. You start off at the warm-up zone, often needing about 30 minutes to ramp up your productivity. After 30 minutes, you start to get into the productivity zone, or as some people call the flow state. Now, this is where you're able to have laser focus and get 2 times, even 3 times the amount of work done as normal. This is where you get lost in your work. You lose track of time, your environment blurs out as you are fully focused on the task on hand. From my personal experiments and experiments from coaching my students, we are able to usually stay in this zone for about 1 to 2 hours. Now, after this, your productivity falls sharply as you start to get easily distracted and your mind starts to wander. Now this is where you reach the burnout zone. This is where your productivity falls even lower than your warm-up zone because your body is signaling for you to get some rest. For crammers actually doing last-minute study, forcing themselves to study 10-12 hours a day, they are effectively indefinitely extending this burnout zone, constantly becoming frustrated as they aren't able to memorize well or produce good quality work because they are unnaturally forcing their brains to focus for an extended period amount of time. Our minds are just not designed to focus for this long. Even highly trained surgeons need to take a break if one surgery goes on for too long. But just so you can see why crammers are almost always worse off, let's find a way to get you to visualize this easily. So we talked about this burnout zone where crammers live during this exam period. And let's say that they decide to study 10 hours straight. This is how much actual productive work they're able to produce. This is now compared to a regular study, again doing 10 hours of work but just 1 hour over the course of 10 days. They are able to fit in so much more of these productivity zones or flow states as compared to the crammer. This is just one of so many principles of studying smarter and not harder. My teachers never taught me this, but so many students have found this helpful and gave them motivation. And I hope this gives you a reason to start to do small bits of daily studies because now you truly see the benefits of it. Now for an actionable point, for you to actually try to sketch out your own study efficiency curve. How long did it take for you to warm up? How long were you able to stay in this productivity zone for? And how does this change if you vary your study environment and even your personal habits, like the amount of sleep you are having each day? Note these tiny adjustments and improvements are actually the key to stack the cards in your favor over time, to let you achieve so much more than those who never bothered to actually figure this out. Number 2 is reading and rereading notes. Number 3 is highlighting notes. And number 4 is spending too much time making notes and flashcards. So to be even more efficient and save you even more time, let's clump the next 3 tips together because this is due to the same bad study habit, which is passive study. We all have times where we want to sit down and feel like we're doing productive study, pulling out our notes, just reading, rereading and rereading them. And we will diligently highlight all our notes and proceed to make these super organized and pretty notes or flashcards. Making good notes is the key to good grades, right? Or so I thought back in pharmacy school. Now yes, indeed, I achieved top 10% in my pharmacy cohort, but in exchange I was studying day in and day out using very ineffective study techniques. I had no free time, I had no family time, and I had no time to meet friends or find time for hobbies that I really enjoyed. Now in contrast, in med school, I similarly achieved top 10%, but I was able to achieve so much more and have so much more free time, watching all the movies I liked, having so much time with friends, and even giving my time to help thousands and thousands of students with their exams using online programs. Why is that, and what has made this difference? This is understanding this cardinal sin of studying, which is passive learning. Passive learning is this biggest time sucker which lulls us into this fake sense of productivity. It makes us feel like that we're doing a lot, but in fact that we're actually not contributing much towards our final exam grades. Now, throughout most of my studies in first year and second year of pharmacy school, I was highly ineffective because my methods worked, at least at a superficial level. I never really evaluated myself and kept using the same passive methods because it gave me the results I wanted. I continued to achieve those A grades in most of my studies. However, each year as I progressed deeper into my university studies, the content grew more and more and more. I was struggling to cope. Most of my time was spent to actually making these notes instead of actually consuming them. Taking a look at this perfect book I made for just one of these subjects, it was a collation of some of the best resources out there. Even my fellow colleagues at the time was offering me $50 and even $100 to get one copy of this, and to date it's still circulating and getting passed on. This was the first subject I got a B grade, ironically, in my undergraduate. I was devastated as an Asian. Upon reflection, I made one of the best notes out there. It was pretty and people even wanted to buy it from me. But why did it not translate to excellent grades? This is because the information in this book remained on these pages and not actually sticking to my brain. This is what passive learning does to us. Here is an easy test. To read, highlight or copy out one page over and over and over again. 1 week later, try to recall this information. How much did you actually remember? Now, from my own experience and from my students' experience that I coach, 1 week later you are likely to remember less than 5%. And this exactly happens to your exams if you were to take it in 1 week time. So another actionable point is to make sure that you try to shift away from these passive learning methods and start using active recall methods. This makes a world of difference, and there are so many videos on YouTube teaching you how to do this properly. So make sure you search for active recall if you are unsure how to do this. Number 5 is studying without a proper plan. Next is putting in blood and sweat. Hours of studying but with no proper plan in place. Now, a classic analogy is like a 100-meter sprint athlete spending hours and hours and hours of hard work training how to run backwards, perfecting the technique of running backwards. On the day of the race, even the slowest forward running athlete achieved a better time than this hard-working athlete. Now, it is indeed sad to see a lot of my previous classmates and my fellow students from study coaching work extra hard, but never understanding why the efforts never translated to good results. Now, a good way to make you better understand this in relation to your studies would be my brick wall analogy. For a particular topic or subject, there will be certain specific objectives or knowledge that you need to cover. The first time you remember it, it's like building this solid brick wall in your memory. In an ideal world, you should learn lecture 1 and this should build a solid brick wall. And then on to lecture 2, another solid brick wall, and so on until lecture 10. You then walk into the exams, then you can easily recall everything and you achieve 100%. Now, as students, we all know that this isn't the case. There's just one tiny flaw that changes this whole logic. Our memory decays over time. So on day 1, we learn lecture 1. It might be a solid wall. And then on day 2, we learn lecture 2. But we've already forgotten a bit about lecture 1. Hence the wall has decayed a bit already. Then day 3 comes and you don't fully understand this topic. So it's only a moderate wall. Then on day 4, you might understand the topic very well and it remains a very solid wall until this day 10. And this cycle goes on and on. The bricks on your wall keeps decaying if you don't come back to review it. So the problem with most students, including myself back in school, is I study chronologically, meaning from lecture 1 to 10. Again, it feels like we're covering all bases. But when I reach these big holes in the wall, I don't spend enough time covering them because I only allocated maybe 1 hour of study to this. But when I reach these solid walls, I know them so well, so I don't really actually need to spend so much time to maintain this solid wall. So effectively, I'm spending too much time on these solid walls that I can actually use to repair these leaky walls back here. So the idea is to go back to these leaky areas and fix these. So the actionable point here would be to adopt what I call a knowledge-based timetable, what I've actually been using since medical school, where you actually focus your time objectively on the weakest subjects rather than going through the topics in order. This is covered really well by Dr. Ali Abdel, the study productivity guru himself, and he calls it the retrospective timetable. timetable, and I was really surprised that someone was actually using the same method as me as I was going through YouTube. This analogy explains why this retrospective timetable works well. Going back to these leaky walls, instead of spending time on these solid brick walls that we actually know very well. This is the essence of studying smarter, and actually I urge you to start looking into this if you feel this is the right study method for you. And on to number 6. Procrastination and distractions. So next is procrastination, the arch enemy of all students and productivity masters. Procrastination needs no further introduction. There are the "it's not half past yet" procrastinator, and I'll definitely start at 6:30 p.m. Now it's 6:32. It's too late to start now, so let's try again at 7, and it goes on and on. Then there are the guilty phone scrollers procrastinator. I know that I should be doing work, but I'll start in just one more YouTube video, and again the cycle goes on and on. There are then the extensive planning procrastinators. I will keep planning, although I will stick to none of these plans. Again, you plan again and again. And then there are the overwhelmed procrastinators. There's too much to do, so I'll deal with it later after my nap. So which one of these are you? Are you a new category by yourself? Comment below and make sure you let me know. So in order to beat procrastination, you need to understand why this monster latches onto your arms, your legs, and onto your brain, so you do absolutely everything else apart from the work you know you should be doing. So I've summarized 4 key points in a dedicated video tutorial, including a procrastination tool that will actually help you bust this productivity killer. I will provide you with the link below for you to access this tutorial as well. And so number 7, using ineffective exam techniques. When we think about it, what actually are exams? It actually tests our ability to recall information from our brain and to put it onto keywords and phrases onto this piece of exam paper. And so here are the 2 parts of doing well in exams. Firstly, there's the recall part, and then secondly, there is the putting it into keywords and phrases part. So the recall part is actually yet another huge topic that I'll cover in future videos, where we talk about memory techniques and how to get information to stick to your brain like super glue. So exam techniques is this second part, which is actually putting these words and phrases onto the exam paper. So if we're unable to perform well during the day, like a marathon runner who has practiced too hard and actually ran a practice marathon the night before the big race, they will be absolutely too exhausted to be doing well in the actual race. Now this is the same for many students. You need to have enough rest for your brain to perform at its peak during exams. But a lot of students do the opposite. They will tire themselves out. They will be doing a lot of practice exams. They will be stressing themselves out and not having enough sleep. So another big problem with exams are these silly mistakes and not able to finish exams. And again, even if you have all this information in your brain, if you aren't able to pick the right keywords and phrases in a specific time frame in the exam, all the preparation work you did would have gone to waste, and it would be such a bummer. So another actionable point would be to try and evaluate what are your problems if you are actually struggling to get good grades. Is it your recall method that is the problem, or is it the way that you actually deliver it on the big exam day that is the problem? What else can you actually do to try to improve your exam techniques? And remember, it is often these 1% improvements over time that gives you so much advantage over other students when it comes to exams. So I hope you have enjoyed this mini lesson, and make sure to check out our website using the link down below if you wish to get access to more free training and study tips. If you wish to learn more about study planning, you can also visit the video on the screen. I hope these study tips have been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.